Well, beautiful. Friends, this is where we are. This is basic, one of the simple equations that, today we are going to discuss. Sometimes we got to go back to the basics. The equation says x squared plus 12 divided by 2 is less than or equals to 14. Okay, so we have to find the truth set of this equation. So first and foremost, what can we do? Let's go on and set the ball rolling. Then we'll break it as we usually do it. Okay, fantastic. So we're about to break it down. So our question that we're given is says, well, the x squared is x squared plus 12x is less than 14 over 2. Well, let's go and try once more. So the question says x squared plus 12x. Okay, so x squared plus 12x is 12x that was supposed to be. 12x is less than 14. That is how it's supposed to be, not 12. Alright, so now this is the question we have at the moment, and we're supposed to find the truth set of the equation. Say find the truth set of the equation. The equation above. Beautiful. So as you can see, we should find the truth set of the equation above. Well, when you see that, what does it come into your mind? Okay, the whole thing is the whole expression term. Okay, the expression term x squared plus 12x all by 2 is less than 14. So when we see something like this, it means the left hand side, let's categorize it like the left hand side, the whole value on the left hand side is less than 14. So it is less than or equal to 14. Okay, so what does it come into our mind? We've seen something like that. An equation of the sort, x squared plus 12x is less than or equals to 14. Well, what do you say? We can substitute what? Okay, the x squared plus 12x divided by 2 as what? A. Okay, let's try it and see. Let's see what somebody is suggesting. Okay, so A to be equal to the whole expression x squared plus 12x all over 2. All right. So if you say that it means that A is less than or equals to 14, which is inconclusive, because it's asking us to find the truth set of the whole equation. So if x squared plus 12x is less than or equals to 14, then we gotta find a certain means to solve this. So let's see the best way. Okay, let's see the best way. I think, let's see. Okay, so if we say that, let's see. So x squared plus 12x all over 2, okay, is less than or equals to 14. Right. So that's what we have. Friends, we have to find a quick way to resolve this so that we'll be smiling. So I would suggest, first of all, we need to multiply the equation through by 2. Okay, so let's say that. So we say multiply. We say multiply through by 2, the denominator. So if we multiply through by 2, then our equation is going to change. Okay, so if the equation changes, this implies that our x squared plus 12x is less than 14 times 2. Friends, are we on the same page? I guess so, because we know this is divisible by 1. Okay, 14 is divisible by 1. So when we do cross multiplication, okay, when we do cross multiplication, we are going to get this that we have achieved. So if we can further go on and say that, therefore, this implies that x squared plus 12x is less than 28, because when we multiply 14 by 2, we get 28. All right? So this 28 that we've got has given a certain clue. So we can, in equation, because this is a basic level, so we always have to make sure that we break it down so that we don't assume that we are all on the same page. So we say in every equation, what we do to the left hand side. So the left hand side, we're going to say LHS. When we say, so LHS, that's the left hand side. So in every equation, what we do to the left hand side, we do the same. To the right hand side, RHS. Okay, so that means whatever we do to the left hand side, we do the same to the right hand side, so we don't go wrong. So that in a nutshell, the values that we are applying will be equally the same. Okay, so that's what we are going to do. All right, so now, is it possible for us to do that? Yes, it is. So the value we are going to subtract, okay, so the value for subtraction is 28. Okay, the value for subtraction, is 28. Okay, now, if that is the case, then we say this implies that x squared plus 12x is less than or equal to 28. That's what we have at our disposal. So we are going to subtract 28 from both sides, because we know by principle in equation what we do to the left hand side, we do to the right hand side too. So what we do to the left hand side, we always do to the right hand side. So what do? We are going to subtract 28 from both sides. Okay, so minus 28. Minus 28 from here, and minus 28 from here. Meaning that our equation has changed. So now our equation is changed. So when we do that, we are going to get x squared plus 12x minus 28 less than 0. Because 28 minus 28 is 0. So you see, you will realize that the equation that we have been able to achieve at this point looks like something we've come across before, a similar equation, which is normally called a quadratic equation. Okay, so in this way, because the whole expression term, the one on the left, which is x squared plus 12x minus 28, okay, is quadratic, but it's less than 0. So this becomes what inequality quadratic. Okay, now let's see something. Inequality quadratic. So what can we do? So we say as quadratic. In what value? So we say as quadratic, as quadratic in x. Okay, so if that is what we have, then we have to find a certain means to break the equation down. So as far as it's quadratic, we have to solve it. How do we solve it? That is where that opens another chapter. Okay, so now the chapter is in quadratic. In quadratic, to solve such equation, yeah, we have steps. So first step one, we say we multiply the coefficient of x squared by the constant c. Well, friends, what I'm saying may sound a little bit jabrick, or if you haven't done quadratic, it will look like something so difficult. But I'm going to give you a small scenario of what this quadratic thing is all about. But we have a proper time to treat quadratic equation as a topic on its own. So first of all, the quadratic equation generally is given as a x squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, such that our a shouldn't be equal to 0. When a becomes 0, then the equation no more holds as quadratic. It becomes what we call linear. Anyway, let's put all this one aside. So the same quadratic equation has been derived by some greater mathematician, and this is a equation we see over here can be written as s is equals to negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, okay, all over 2a. This equation, people usually refer to this equation as the almighty quadratic equation. The reason why they call it almighty quadratic equation is because this quadratic equation is capable of solving every complex quadratic equation. Every unsolvable quadratic equation can be reduced down to 0 by this almighty quadratic equation. With that respect, we got to highlight it for you to understand what I'm trying to say. This is the almighty quadratic equation. So this, looking at these two formulas, okay, as you can see, these two formulas, all right, is what we will use to solve equation of the sort. Okay, so let's go back. So from here, then we have x squared plus 12x minus 28. If we compare the equations, okay, that is our equation. Let me write it down again. Is x squared okay, plus 12x minus 28 is less than or equal to 0. So when we do comparison over here, we see that over here, right before the value x, okay, you will see that there's no value in front of the x here. That means the value in front of the x squared here is 1, but we usually don't write it. So comparatively, you will see that if we look at these two equations, then we say that A is equals to 1, and B is equals to 12, and C is equals to negative 28. So if we substitute these respective values into almighty quadratic equation, then we'll be able to find the solution. But I'm not going to go through this route. We'll talk about it later on as we go on. But in the meantime, when we take the equation, when we multiply the coefficient of s squared by the constant, we get negative 28. Okay, so we multiply 1 by negative 28 over here. Okay, our value we get is negative 28. And therefore, we look for factors. Okay, so after multiply the coefficient of s squared by the constant, you see the second step, okay, you say we find the factors of negative 28, okay, that when we sum up, will give us the value, will give us the value of B. All right, will give us the value of B in question. Over here, our B is nothing but what? Positive 12. Okay, I know you haven't done quadratic equation, but if you follow the step, you'll see that you'll be able to break it down and understand it simply. But as I promised, we are going to treat quadratic equation and a quadratic expression as a topic on its own, a voluminous topic. Okay, that we will do it from the top to the bottom. But in the meantime, those who don't know anything about quadratic equation, you got to follow us, and you smoothly go with us for us to be able to achieve our destination. So now what do? We have negative 28. What can we do to get 12, which is this, the 12x in the middle? Okay, what can we do to get our 12? This. Okay, let's see. So our value that we have was negative 28. So when we can say negative 28 can be written as 14 times minus 2. Why am I saying that? 14 times minus 2. When we sum it up by removing the multiplication sign over here, so that is how we test it to see that is the right factor. So this one, we change the sign here to be plus, and we put our values 14. Okay, 14 minus 2. When we do that, we are going to get 14 minus 2, and that will give us 12, which is the B. So therefore, okay, so therefore our factors, our factors or factor that will help us is 14 and negative 2, which we can write it as 14x minus 2x. So this becomes 14x minus 2x. Okay, so this is what we are going to place or replace it beneath where we saw, what's the name, 12 in our equation. Let's go back and see. In the equation, we have x squared plus 12x. So instead of putting 12x here, we are going to replace it with 14x minus 2x, which gives us our answer as to 12x. Okay, well this will give us what? 12x. Okay, so we put that back into the equation. When we do that, our equation now becomes x squared plus 14x minus 2x minus 28 is less than or equals 0. Well, friends, don't get scared. Don't be messing. Dude, look at it. If you look at it very carefully, you see the 14x minus 2x will give us a 12x. So we haven't changed anything at all. All what we've done is we have found the factors that can help us to solve the equation. So let's go back with it. So now, as we continue, so we have x squared plus 14x minus 2x minus 28. Now, friends, as we've got this, the next step is what we have to do, what we call factorization. Okay, so we do our step 3 is we do factorization. Factorization. Okay, so this is, you see, so we are applying this applied mathematics. See, factorization. I'm very sure you guys, every one of us here have done or know something about factorization. Okay, so how do we factorize it? We got to group the like terms together so that it looks similar. Then after that, it helps us to solve our question. Now, so let's go with it. So if we do that, then this is going to be, okay, we have s squared out. So we can bring s squared out of this equation. So if I pull this one, okay, let me break it into pieces so that we will understand. This is 14x minus 2x minus 28 is less than 0. So what do? I'm going to break them down. All right? Now let's see. Because I've got two parts. This is my first part, and this is my second part. All right. So that is the case, and that is the situation. I'm going to pull something out. Okay, so I'm pulling my x out of this equation. Don't forget, if I pull x out, I still have x here. Plus, then there's another x here. So this one becomes 14. You got it? In the same way, over here, I'm going to pull negative 2 out. Okay, now let's see. When I do that, I put a bracket out. This, I'm left with what? X. And when the next number that can give me 28 over here will be plus 14. Friends, have you realized that it's less than 0? You see, so the beautiful thing is the equation is solved. But now let's see. We will realize that the x plus 14 and x plus 14 has repeated itself. So therefore, this and that will be one factor, and for x plus 14 will be another factor. So this means, or this implies, that if eventually my equation now becomes x minus 2, because I've taken this x and this minus 2 into bracket, x plus 14, all right, is less than 0. If that is the case, then I got to break it into 2, because this is what products. Yeah, it's product of two factor values. So this is a product of two values. Okay, so now we can say that x minus 2, okay, is less than 0. Okay, and since they're multiplying, I'm saying or x plus 14 is less than 0. Okay, if that is the case, when we solve them individually, then what can we say? This is the easiest part of the equation. I always say to students that when you see the inequality sign, you shouldn't be scared at all, because it's the same as equal sign or something like that. It's just a different sign. So don't let it scare you. Now, we know that when we cross the -2 on the right, or we add 2 to both sides, our equation is going to be x less than 2 or x less than -14. So this is the truth set. Okay, this is the truth set. So in effect, we can, say that if that is the case, okay, the equation itself, as we see it, is got what? Positive coefficient. So in the rough sketch of this graph, for instance, let's see. If we draw it, we have y-axis, okay, y-axis, and x-axis. I think I gotta use the smooth one for us to get it right. So, good. So, as we can see, come here. So we have the y-axis and x-axis, for instance. So you see the value of 2 is in the positive range here, 2, and -14 is somewhere there, -14. So the graph, when we sketch it, okay, roughly it's going to go like that. Okay, so the values, it says that when x is less than 2, all those values fall within here. Okay, and when x is less than 14, you see the values of 14, when it's less than that, we got to share it too. So therefore, our truth set, we say that the truth set yeah, that is how we write it, is the truth set is x such that x is less than 2, okay, or x is less than -14. So this is the true set of the equation. Okay, so as for if we want to test, we can test the values to get some certain understanding, but to our level, we are not going to do that. So let's recap, okay, and so that we'll be on the same level. So in the first place, our question was x squared plus 12x is less than or equals to 14. Okay, we were supposed to find the true set of the whole equation. The true set of the equation. Yeah. So what did we do? We look at it and say, we see this whole expression is less than 14. And somebody suggested that we should substitute a in place of the whole set of equation that we've written over here. Okay. Well, it was a good suggestion, but would it help us? No. All what it would say that a is less than 14, and we have to compute for a to give us certain values to be able to solve it. So we put that one aside and we say, okay, now let's look at the equation proper. We realize that the equation, the best way to tackle the equation is to find the values that can help us to make the equation very simple. So we saw that the whole equation actually is divided by 2 and is less than 14. But we know the 14 is divisible by 1. So we multiply through by 2, which is the common value that can cancel the 2. So when we multiply 2 here, that 2 cancel this one, and we multiply here by 2 too. Because in the equation, what we do to the left-hand side, we do the same on the right. Okay? So look at it. So x squared plus 12x is less than or equals to 14 times 2. So we got this expression term that says the x squared plus 12x is less than or equals to 28. Now, the point has come for us to solve the question. How do we solve the question? We are able to reduce the question to a certain simplicity that can help us to go ahead. Now, when we look at the equation, then we applied what we've learned in elementary school that says that in every equation we solve, what we do to the left-hand side, we do the same on the right. So with this, we decided that we're going to do something for the equation to look very simple. So we subtracted 28 from both sides. So by so doing, we achieved 12 x squared plus 12x minus 28 less than or equals 0. So by the look of the equation, we observed that the equation was very familiar and that it was quadratic. So if that is the case, we have to define the whole equation for everybody to understand that we, or the examiner or the tutor, to understand that we know what we're doing. So we have to define the type of equation. So we say as quadratic in x. So meaning we're going to compute for the values of x. So okay, so in quadratic, to be able to such equation, we say we multiply the coefficient of the x squared, and we know that the coefficient of x squared is 1, but only we don't write it because it's value 1. If it's supposed to be 2, we put it here, or 3, we put it here. Okay, but because it's 1, we don't write it. So we say it's 1 x squared, so we don't write it. So we multiply the coefficient 1 by negative 28. So we multiply the coefficient of x squared by the c, and we know the c. Okay, then we got to this point, we brought this equation down here, and we defined what it means. We realized that, okay, ax squared plus bs plus c is equal to 0 has always been the general equation for the quadratic. But it only, exists, such that a shouldn't be equals to 0. Because if a becomes 0, and so this one will become linear, bs plus c, and therefore it will never exist or hold as a quadratic equation. Well, I also expatiated that the same quadratic equation can also be written as x equals to negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac. This what horrendous equation we see over here is nothing but a derivative of that, where the initial equation. Okay, and people usually call it the almighty quadratic equation, because this is solution to every quadratic equation. It can solve every quadratic equation. That is the reason why people refer to it as almighty quadratic equation. Then, having that in mind, knowing the values of the a, b, and c respectively, all what we have to do is to substitute the respective values into the equation, and then we find the value of x. Okay, that is easier and straight on. But we decided to go off tangent and use traditional method or approach of solving it. Okay, so what do? The traditional approach says multiply the coefficient of x squared by the constant. So our coefficient of x squared is 1. Our constant is negative 28. Okay, so our factors, okay, of negative 28, okay, when we multiply that, we got that negative 28. We'll find the factors, and we realize that 14 times negative 2 will give us 28. And when we change the sign here into additional sign, this will help us to do our test to see the right factors for the quadratic equation. So this 14 plus minus 2 will give us 12. Okay, so this will be 12x we saw in the equation, the middle of the equation. So all what we did, we say, therefore the factors are 14, negative 2. And that is 14x minus 2x. That will give us 12x. We substituted the 12x back into the equation. Okay, then it became this one. Okay, why also explain that the 14 minus x over here, 14 minus 2x over here, give us 12x. That brings the equation back to the way it is. So being able to do that, now we'll come to a certain point that we need to do what is called factorization. Okay, which everybody knows how to do factorization. I guess I may be wrong. So this x squared plus 14x minus 2x minus 28. You see, that's how I categorize it. So I pulled, you see, the x out. So this one became x plus 14. And this one I pulled negative 2 out. And this one became x plus 14. So you see that we have resemblance or similarity, okay, in the equation. If you solve every quadratic equation, that is what happens. If you don't see something like that, that means you are out of tangent. So now we realize that x plus 14 and x plus 14, we see both on the left and right hand side are the same. But the x minus 2 comes out of the equation. So x minus 2 became one of the factors. So x minus 2 into bracket and x plus 14 is less than or equals to 0. These two are products. Okay, they are not addition, so we can say and. So they are products. So we say x minus 2 is less than or equals 0, or x plus 14 is less than or equals 0. In the same way, so it means x is less than 2 and x is less than negative 14. And we did a rough sketch over here. Okay, now, you know, when we are going this way, you see, we are increasing value. Okay, when we're going this way, we are decreasing value. Okay, that's how it is. So we say that the true set of this equation is this is how we write it. It says x such that x is less than or equal to 2, or x is less than or negative 14. Right, friends? That is where we'll bring the equation to. Well, we are excited that so far so good. Everybody is happy. But please, if you don't understand anything and you want further clarification, don't be shy. Something through my what do you call it, the suggestion area, okay, so that I can meet you only in Zoom and expand it properly for you to understand it, maybe that other way. Thank you very much. Please subscribe and do the right thing.